Hello and welcome to another video on the Grimwood Watch Modern channel, and today I have gone and done something that I said I would never do again. I have gone and got myself another Calvin Klein auto. I know I said I would never do it again, but Jomashop, which yet again I said I would never buy from again, had a sale on, and I've managed to pick up this watch all in, so sent to me door, all taxes paid, for £110. And as you can see from the label there, it is one of the models which has the ETA 2824 movement in. And if you're in the know, one of these movements by itself from a supplier costs around about 250 quid just for the movement, so I wasn't going to let this watch pass by me again. And good news is this one came in intact from the supplier, no issues whatsoever. So without further ado, let's have a dive into this watch and see if it really meets up to a Swiss standard made quality watch. As always, let's start off with some of the specifications. So case diameter is 42mm, lug to lug is 49mm, we have a case thickness of 10mm, and we've got a lug width of 22mm. The movement in this is an ETA 2824, so we've got 28,800 beats per hour. We also have a 38-hour power reserve. Case material is 316 stainless steel. We've got a sapphire crystal on top, a total water resistance rating of 30 meters. We also have a lovely case back display in the back, which is actually a pressed down case back, which I absolutely detest, but hey ho. Stainless steel bracelet, and this comes in at 120 grams measured to my 6 3/4 inch wrist. So with the specs out the way, let's have a closer look at the aesthetics. Let's start off at the dial, and in all honesty, this dial actually does appeal to me quite a lot. It is very minimalistic but has all the information anybody would require from an analog watch. In the centre we do have this very plain look, but the closer you look at the dial, it does have a very slight texture to it. At the 12 o'clock we do have Calvin Klein, which is the biggest turn off in my mind, because Calvin Klein as a brand just brings up men with boxer shorts hanging out the backside with Calvin Klein written around the waistband. It is not a look I like, and it's not a look I'm going to be catching onto anytime soon, but supposedly it is fashionable. Yeah, right. Anyway, at 6 o'clock we do have automatic there. Just to remind people, you do have an automatic watch and you've paid that premium to have something that isn't quartz. And at the 6 o'clock, right at the lower point as well, we do have Swiss Made to indicate that 60% of this watch was made in Switzerland, which is, to be honest, is a bonus, and it does actually show the quality is there, I'm not going to lie. As we go to the outermost part of the dial though, this is where it gets slightly more complex. We've got these lovely second markers going all the way around the circumference, very finely printed, and every minute we also have this little elongated marker as well, just to make sure you know the exact minute your hands are pointing to. And at every 5-minute mark we have an indice, and we also have a numeral in 5-minute kind of times, steps, whatever you call it. So we've got 5, 10, 15, yada yada yada. The overall look is quite sophisticated and quite well done, I am going to say that. And at the 3 o'clock we also have a nicely positioned date window, which matches very very well in the dial. To be honest, it looks like it is actually part of the dial. Moving on to the hands, and the minimalistic feel continues. They're very blocky, very in your face, however against that lovely satin black dial they're very legible. The hour hand just says skims every 15-minute marker, which is a nice touch. The minute hand just says skims every one of those very finely printed indices, and the second hand goes right into the indices, so you can actually precisely read the second of every one of those markers. Reading the time off this watch is very very easy. Another point, the hands do have some lume on them. The rest of the dial does not, however, which I find a bit of a kind of bad point, because even though the hands have got the time on, unless you know what orientation you're holding the watch in, which I'm guessing you could find out by the actual crown position, sometimes looking at it out of bed you do sometimes confuse where the hands are in relation to the dial. So, you know, it would have been nice to have a little fleck of lume on the numerals as well on the dial. Moving up from the hands, we have a lovely bit of sapphire crystal. It doesn't look like it's got any AR coating on or any hint of colour in there, but it is sapphire, which is a good point, because having such a big bit of sapphire on top of a watch or even a crystal, this is a magnet to getting whacked and scratched and so on and so forth. And if if you had a bit of mineral in there, you would have marks all over it. The only downside with this crystal is it's a right fingerprint magnet. I keep cleaning this watch constantly because every time I look at it, there's a fingerprint, there's a smear, you just see it throughout. It is horrendous, and that's the only down point of the actual crystal. Moving up to the bezel, which, well, to be honest, I call it a bezel, it's a fixed bezel. We have this lovely chamfer going all the way around the outside, nicely polished as well. The finishing on this watch is quite well done, and you know what, it finishes off the whole minimalistic look quite well. The case itself, like I said before, is 316 stainless steel, and it is very simple in design, however, it pulls it off very well indeed. The actual lugs themselves don't really protrude that far from the case, but they do go slightly further than the bottom of the case. We have a lovely kind of bowed side case, as you can see from the side there. It is very nice indeed, and the actual lugs themselves do have a little bit of machine in there, just add a bit of complexity, and there's also a mix of finishes. We've got polished on the sides and we've got a bit of brushing on the top. Moving around to the crown side, however, this is one of my bugbears with this watch. Trying to wind this watch when it's flat is an absolute pain in the backside. I just cannot get a purchase on that crown whatsoever. What I find myself doing is giving it a couple of winds until it gets going, and then just sticking it straight on the wrist, and hopefully I'll charge it throughout the day. It is a bit of a fiddle on. However, pulling it out of the first position mark, we obviously get winding and hacking as you would get from the 28-24 movement. And when you've got that little bit of extra space with the crown, it is easy enough to set. The date, however, yet again, is a bit fiddly to set, but hey ho, it's just one of them things you have to take into account with this watch. I guess it goes with the minimalist design. There's also, if I have a bit of a focus on the end of that crown, there's a CK logo on there as well. I would be filing that off straight away because, like I say, Calvin Klein is a brand that I just detest. Now we turn the watch over and have a look at the back, and this is yet again another feature I quite like about this watch. Calvin Klein have gone and put themselves a display case back in the back, and why wouldn't you? You've just spent all that money on getting a pile of ETA movements to put into your Swiss Made watch. You're going to want to show it off to people, and you know what, they've done a good job. And it's not one of the decorated movements, don't get me wrong, but still it is a nice movement to look at. The only issue you've got is yet again Calvin Klein. I'm thinking of boxer shorts again. You do have some kind of specs going around the outside of the case back, which yet again is just standard in the majority of watches. The only issue for me is it's a press case back. I do not like them. However, the majority of people are not going to be taking this off any point of the watch's life, no doubt, so to the majority of people are not going to realise that. But for me, who's going to be taking this movement out and no doubt putting it into another watch, it is a bit of a pain, but hey ho, I'm not going to reuse the case again, so if I do scratch it up, it doesn't really matter. Moving on to the bracelet, and yet again, Calvin Klein haven't done a bad job in making it, in all honesty. The end links are quite nicely machined to the case. We've got a lovely kind of mix match of finishes going between satin brushed and this lovely polished kind of centre links, which, in all honesty, on like 3 linked bracelets I don't particularly like, but these 5 linked bracelets, it's just the right amount of polished kind of surfaces to kind of get away with it. I love it, and it's also polished on the outer edges as well. However, the bit I like most about this bracelet is the clasp. This has got to be one of the best butterfly clasps I've had on a bracelet in a very, very long time. The feel of it is very nice, it's very precise, it's all machined, we've got a mixture of finishes in there. It's just, to be honest, very, very spot on. The only problem is we've got Calvin Klein written on that there. That would have to come straight off in my mind. The other negative about this bracelet is it's a pin and collar setup, and if you've ever done a pin and collar setup bracelet, you know how much of a pain in the backside it is to set. You push the pin out, the collar goes somewhere, you lose it, you've lost that pin forever, that collar forever. And to be honest, I've scratched this bracelet up trying to actually set it. It's just a right pain in the backside, and if I was paying the original price around about 750 quid for this watch, I would not be happy, but at 100 quid, just over, I'm not too fussed actually. So the bracelet itself at that price is very nicely done. As for the lume on the Calvin Klein, in all honesty, it is very poor. Even if there's just a little bit on the hands, it just barely shows. Comparing it against a modded Seiko and also my Zelos Swordfish, it just doesn't compare, does it? So lume-wise on this watch, it's very poor. And here is the Calvin Klein on my 6 3/4 inch wrist, and you know what? It wears remarkably well. It's got very nice wrist presence on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. It doesn't look too big. The bracelet conforms very, very nicely. It's very, very comfortable. I've actually got one removable link left in here. I've taken 5 out, so I dare say you'll be able to wear this from 6.5 inches of wrist circumference all the way up to 7.5 very, very easily. And yeah, and the weight of 120 grams is just enough to make it comfortable and also know that you've got a watch on your wrist but not too heavy whatsoever. So with that all said, let's move on. So, my final thoughts on the Calvin Klein K5S yada yada yada. Well, I feel dirty saying this. At this moment in time, this is the best watch you can pick up at the price point. I paid £110 for this. Swiss Made ETA movement, looks good bar the Calvin Klein branding. It is an amazing watch for your money. Even under £200, this is still a steal. And I'm going to say this now, these are selling quite quick because people have cottoned on. And people are actually buying them to mod. A lot of people are putting Flieger style dials in them to take away the Calvin Klein brand. And yes, you still have a Calvin Klein rotor and a clasp, but who's going to look at that on your wrist? You've got a Flieger style watch on your wrist, Swiss made for less than £200. In my mind, that's a no-brainer. I have got plans for this watch which I will reveal in a later video. It is not going to be staying like this, so please keep an eye out. However, please put in the comments, would you buy this watch at this price? Do you think it's a steal? Would you wear it? Or would you just go for something more traditional because you cannot bear to actually bring yourself to wear something with Calvin Klein on the dial? If you have liked this video, please press the like button, subscribe, press the bell button for future notifications, and as always, keep safe and I will see you soon.